when you're a newbie to a community and you're trying to get in and kind of figure out the lay of the land, it's very hard to do, and it's like very intimidating. And like for me, having been in the Magento space for a long time and met a lot of people, and knowing a lot of the common pitfalls people run into, it's like common sense for me. There's an in language. There's what's the word for that? There's a language of like insiders in the community that are just, like you joke about caching, or you joke about, crappy agencies that do bad work or whatever. Like there's just certain things that are obvious to you having been in the space for a while that wouldn't necessarily be obvious to outside people coming into the community. And I think about, for example, maybe if I'll meet somebody or talk to somebody who's a merchant that's coming to Imagine, and they're just like trying to jump into the space and learn about it. And you can kind of tell they don't really have their bearings. They don't really kind of understand what's going on. They're talking to the different solutions providers, and they have no idea who the ones are that are like really community oriented and really gung-ho and like passionate about Magento versus the ones that are just like sales machines. Like you can tell they don't have the slightest idea the difference between them and stuff. A lot of that just comes with time. Like there's a large time investment into learning kind of the ins and outs of a community. As I'm getting to this other community where I don't know anything about anything, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do you find a good property manager? How do you find a good agent that sells you properties? And then people will joke about like very similar things. Like they'll joke about vendors that are really bad or that are known to be bad, or like horror stories like that people will have one way or another. And you're like, wait a second. So like, how exactly do you avoid that from happening? In the Magento community, you might joke about like horror stories of like something going south with a project because it wasn't very well defined, or they were working with a bad agency or whatever. It's kind of common sense. But then for somebody that's totally new to it, it's like, wait a second, tell me exactly how I can avoid those problems and how I can do this correctly. It's sort of a non-trivial thing to figure out, because you're trying to learn a new world really, and there's a bunch of different entities in that space, and having online forums and online community is helpful because there's a lot of information you can search through, but also because of that, there's so much information that it can be hard to curate it and learn to figure it out. So I don't know what the takeaway of that is, other than if you're in the Magento community and you're dealing with somebody that's new to it, try to maybe have some of that empathy of like, they might not know what's going on at all, for us to think about how we can help people ultimately find what they're looking for.